Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, where we use gentle movement sessions to build strength, improve mobility, and increase coordination, so that you move better and feel stronger. Today, we're going to be doing a Feldenkrais session. So grab a mat, lie down on the floor, and let's get started. Today, we're doing a lesson called Some Fundamental Properties of Movement. We'll go through some basic movement patterns slowly, with control and precision, so you can do even difficult movements easily. Let's begin. Start by lying on your back with your legs long and bring your arms overhead so the back of your hands are touching the mat, if they can. And then just feel which parts of your back are touching the floor and which parts are raised. Start with your heels, and then feel which parts of your ankles are touching the floor, the backs of your calf, the backs of your knees, the backs of your legs, your hips, your lower back, your mid back and your upper back, your shoulders, your neck and your head. And feel how comfortable your arms are resting overhead like this. Then just rest your arms beside you again. And rest. Feeling where you're breathing into as you lie here. Is it your chest, your belly, or both? Then bring your arms overhead again. And now lift your right arm by lifting your right shoulder slightly off the floor. And then lower that back down. Do this a few times, feeling how your hand might slide slightly away from you, so your shoulder blade is sliding forwards and upwards along the ribs and gliding back down behind the ribs as your arm lowers. Coordinate this movement with your breath out, and then feel what happens down through your ribs as you lift your shoulder. Can you feel your ribs drawing down, letting your mid-back go into the floor, and then rising back to its start position as your arm lowers back down? Let that go and put your arms back down beside you, and rest. Then, roll over so you lie on your stomach and your arms are overhead, still with your legs long, but this time your elbows are slightly bent so that your hands are a little bit closer together than your elbows. Then lift your right shoulder again, but this time your shoulder blade slides backwards to lift your arm up and then forwards to lower it back down. So keep doing this movement. But this time only lift your upper arm, so your elbow lifts off the floor a little bit, but your wrist stays resting. So we're trying to relax the forearm now. And then lift it high enough that your wrist leaves the floor with your forearm still relaxed, so your fingers drape towards the floor. And then can you do it so that your hand leaves the floor with your fingers, but your forearm stays relaxed as your arm lifts through your shoulder blade and then lowers through your shoulder blade. Let that go and lie down on your back and rest. Bring your arms overhead again, and again lift that right shoulder so that your arm lifts off the floor. And notice whether that's gotten easier to do now. And then can you lift your right arm with your right leg leaving the floor a little bit? And as you do that, notice whether your back arches to lift your leg or whether your lower back flattens to lift your leg. And can you let your lower back flatten to lift your leg so that your pelvis tilts a little bit towards you as your leg comes up, and then returns to neutral with your back as your leg lowers. Feel how your ribs and pelvis draw towards one another at the front to lengthen your back so it lowers towards the floor and makes your arm and leg light. Then let that go and rest. The next time, You lift your right arm, lift it just by itself, and hopefully you feel that the ribs move with your shoulder. Then lift your leg and feel that you flatten your back into the mat as the leg lifts, and then lower that back down. And now feel that as you lift your leg, your ribs and pelvis draw towards one another still. And as you lift your arms, the ribs and pelvis again draw towards one another. So no matter which limb you're lifting, there's a drawing down of your back towards the mat and a shortening and contraction through your core to lengthen your back and make your limbs light. Remember to coordinate this movement with the breath out to help your rib and pelvis connection. Let that go and rest. Then lie face down, again with your arms overhead. With your elbows slightly bent. Then lift that right shoulder again to lift your arm. Has that gotten easier? Then turn your head to the right and lift your right arm. Is that easier than having your forehead down on the floor? Then turn your head to the left and lift your right arm. And how easy is that compared to having your head turned to the right or face down? Then retest those positions a couple of more times each way. And then rest. Let your head rest on the right. Then the next time you lift your right arm, can you look at your hand as your arm and hand lift off the floor, so that your head comes slightly backwards and to the left. And then lower that back down and do that again. And feel now your upper back is lengthening in a certain way. You might feel a diagonal line from your shoulder towards your left hip, towards your left leg, and that your chest is lengthening in a certain way as you lift your arm and head. And notice your breathing. Are you able to do this movement while you still breathe, or do you hold your breath? When you hold your breath, it's too hard, so make sure you stay within a range of motion that's comfortable for you, where you can do this without straining. Let that go and rest. Then the next time you lift your right arm and your head, can you also lift your right leg and foot off the floor? So you lift your arm, your head, and your foot at exactly the same time and lower them back down. Again, coordinating this with your breath out, but trying to stay within a range of motion that's comfortable for you. Can you feel that as you do this, your right side stays long, not only through your stomach, but also through your back? That you're not bending your back to lift your arm, you're just lengthening your limbs up. Then let that go and rest on your back. And as you lie on your back now, notice if there's any difference in how you're lying compared to how you were at the beginning of the session. Are different parts of the back of your body touching the mat? Are you breathing differently through your ribs, your stomach, or through one side? Does your right side feel slightly different to your left side now? How does your right eye feel compared to your left eye? And can you feel some connection between your shoulder, your ribs, your pelvis, and your leg on this right side as you lie here? Now bring your arms overhead again And repeat that all on the left side. So lifting your left arm from the movement in your shoulder. And as you do that, feeling how your ribs might move down as you lift that arm. How your breath out can help facilitate the movement in your ribs as you lift that arm. So that your mid-back lowers a little bit as your shoulder comes forwards and up. And the ribs might come up a little bit as your shoulder comes back and down. Can you already feel some connection through your pelvis as you lift your arm and your ribs move? And so can you already feel your core starting to engage to lift this arm as your ribs draw down? And then let that go. Bring your arms down beside you. Then roll onto your stomach again. With your arms overhead and your legs long, elbows slightly bent. And lift that left arm by moving your left shoulder blade back and then lower it back down. Feel the breath out as you lift your arm and then as you lower. Feel how your shoulder blade moves backwards and allows your chest to slightly lengthen through that left side. Can you already feel a slight diagonal from that left shoulder down towards your right hip and leg? As your shoulder lifts your arm and your weight rolls a little bit through your ribs to the right. Then let that go and rest on your back. Once again, bring your arms overhead and lift that left arm by lifting your left shoulder. Feel the connection from your ribs to your pelvis, and then lift your left leg with your left arm, lengthening through your lower back and drawing your lower back towards the floor as your front of the pelvis and lower ribs draw towards one another to lift your arm and leg. Feel the deep muscles of your core pulling so that your arm and leg become light to do this movement. Feel the length that is created through your back as your front contracts to lift the arm and leg and to lower. Then, the next time you lift your left arm, let it come up only by itself from the shoulder. Then lift your left leg through the pelvis, lifting your arm through the shoulder and ribs, and your leg through your pelvis and rib connection. So alternating between your arm lifting and your leg lifting, with those deep core muscles engaging as your ribs connect both the movement of the arm and the movement of the leg as they lift. Let that go, bring your arms down beside you and rest. Roll onto your stomach with your arms overhead and your legs long. And again, test how easy it is to lift that left arm by lifting your shoulder with your forehead down. Then turn your head to the left and lift your left arm, feeling how easy that is. Then turning your head to the right and feeling how easy it is to lift your left arm with your head to the right. And just test a few times which is the most comfortable way of having your head. And then rest with your head turned to the left. Then, the next time you lift your left arm, look at your left hand so that your head moves up and back towards the right. Then lower that back down. So now we're increasing that diagonal from your left shoulder down towards your right hip and leg. Still keeping your thoracic spine and your lower back long as you lengthen that diagonal and lengthen the ribs on that left side to lift your arm and head, then to lower. Remember to focus on your breathing. Stay within a range of motion that's comfortable for you so that you can keep breathing easily as you perform this movement. Let that go and rest. And the next time you lift your arm and your head, also lift your left leg. So your arm, your head, and your foot leave the floor at the exact same time, and then lower down at the exact same time. Feeling that rolling of weight, the lengthening through the left side of your body, so that lifting your arm and leg doesn't make your back compress, but you can stay long through both sides of your torso. And rest. Lie down on your back with your arms beside your body, your legs long. Then bring your arms overhead again. This time, as you lift your right shoulder, lift your left leg at the exact same time. So now you're feeling your right ribs pull towards your left hip pull towards your right ribs, lengthening your back on a diagonal to make your opposite limbs light. Coordinate this movement with your breath out. Stop that and switch sides. Now lifting your left arm and right leg through the movements of the shoulder, the ribs, the pelvis, and the leg to make one diagonal of your body, the back diagonal, long as the front diagonal shortens to make your limbs light. Remember to use the breath out to pattern this movement. And then let that go and rest. Next, lift both arms and both legs through the movement of the shoulders, ribs, and pelvis to lengthen your back, and then let that go. You want to feel your back lengthening so that the lower back comes into the floor, the front of your body shortens as the ribs and pelvis draw towards one another, then away, to make your limbs light to perform this movement. Then let that go and rest. Then the next time you lift your arms and legs, lift your head as well, so your whole body bends. The whole of your back lengthens, then you come back down. Your pelvis and ribs pull together at the front, then lower, so that your back can lengthen along the mat to make your limbs light, your head light, so that your shoulders lengthen and draw back. Lengthen and down. Then rest. Put your arms down beside you and notice how you're breathing now. Then roll over onto your front, again with your arms overhead, elbows slightly bent, your head turned to the right, then lift your right arm looking at your right hand and your left leg. Feeling that diagonal from your right shoulder down to your left hip, the right arm through to your left leg, And the right side of your chest lengthens away from the left side of your hip. So you're lengthening through the front, staying long through the back as you lift one side, and moving only within a range of motion where you can keep breathing easily. Rest, and then let your head turn to the other side, and repeat that on the other diagonal. So now lifting your left arm, your right leg, and looking at your left hand. Feel how your front lengthens as you lift up into extension, so that you can do this without your back tightening or compressing. Keeping within your comfortable range of motion. And rest. Let your forehead rest in the center now. Then, lift your arms and legs all at once by letting your shoulder blades slide along your ribs to lift your arms. Your front lengthens and your feet reach long as they lift. Your back stays long as your arms and legs both maneuver themselves up, then lower down. Let that go. Then the next time you lift both arms and both legs, look forwards at your hands, then lower. Feel that your shoulders are still free to slide, that your chest and belly lengthen so that you're not shortening through your back. Your whole body is elongating to lift, then lowering back down. Feel all of the movements we've put in place to allow your shoulder blades the freedom to move, your chest the freedom to open, and your hips the freedom to lengthen so that this move can be done easily. Rest, and then lie down on your back. Notice the difference with how you're lying on the mat now. Notice your breath. Then, roll to your side and come up to sitting. And from there, come up to standing. Notice how your body stacks up now, how your feet contact the floor, how your hips stand over your feet, the shape of your spine, how your shoulder blades rest on your ribs, how your arms rest beside you, and how your head and neck stack up over the rest of your body. And see if you can keep this for the rest of the day. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you had a great session. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.